I'm just really glad the name got said out loud a few times on the show, because looking at it on paper, that's the sort of spelling that I always go, oh God, is it Gerri or Gerri? Continuing my way through inside number 9, the first season at least. I plan to watch more than that, but I'll probably only do reviews for the first season. And we arrive at Tom and Gerri. Now, this is one that's kind of been talked up quite a bit by folks commenting on my reviews of this show so far. This seems to be one that is very, very highly thought of. And that made me nervous, because I had a lot of issues with The Quiet Night In. And I was nervous going to one that I know is so highly regarded, because I thought, oh God, if I don't like this one, should I even keep watching this show? Was Sardines and how much I liked that, was that a fluke? No, it wasn't. This is quite good. I will get into spoilers eventually, but I'll try and stay spoiler-free for as long as I can. This was an interesting thing for me to watch, particularly partly because of the headspace that the previous episode put me in, where I was looking at things that they were doing, obviously just for the sake of a joke, that just really irked me in terms of depictions of certain types of people. And I got really nervous about that here, because in the initial setup, I feel like I can tell the setup without counting as spoilers. So you have a guy named Tom. He's a teacher. He's an aspiring novelist. He lives in this apartment, this flat. It's England, so it's a flat, with his girlfriend Gerri, who is an actress, and there's a homeless man outside. He gets referred to as a tramp, named Mig, and Tom sort of has an encounter with him, and then it just sort of goes from there. And I don't want to give too much more than that as far as the spoiler-free section goes. Now, I got really nervous by that, because there are a lot of really troubling depictions of homeless people in popular entertainment. And given how massive a problem it is, and I don't know necessarily what the situation is like in England, but certainly how underfunded a lot of the systems that are attempting to help people who are living on the streets are in America, at least. It was an element I got very nervous to see was going to be a major part of this show, of this episode. And I think ultimately it was well handled. But I say that more in terms of the mood, tone, and direction of the overall story. In terms of specific things about that character, I think people who really get upset or annoyed or, by depictions of homeless people in media, they may end up still finding some issue with that. And I'm not going to say that they're wrong, but I will say there was enough about the episode in terms of tone, mood, and general direction of the narrative that for me made it work as far as things go. It took the curse off it in terms of how the thing goes through overall. This has one of the more outright sinister vibes to it from the beginning. Like from the music from the very beginning to the first time we see Mig, the whole thing has a creepy vibe to it. More out and out than I've seen from the show so far, because Sardines, the creep factor came in slowly and then at the very end, tipped its hand. And in A Quiet Night In, the sort of creepier aspects just sort of came in tiny bursts here and there. This is much more front and center, which made it kind of interesting. I'd say this is also the least humorous. I would say this one's not even trying to be funny at all, which again puts it in contrast with the other episodes of the show that I've seen so far. That's not to say that there's nothing, no laughs or nothing fun about it. There are a couple, but it's The other episodes that I've seen very deliberately went for humor for at least a portion of their runtime. This one just really never does. There's like a couple of laughs here and there, but the overall mood is not light. It's not jovial. And again, with the direction that things go, I think that was probably a really good call. And I feel like I need to start talking spoilers. So I still think I like Sardines a little better than this. But this is definitely a big step up from A Quiet Night In, which I think I just need to put my foot down and say I didn't like A Quiet Night In. So now I'm going to start getting to spoilers. So obviously I mentioned my concerns about Mig being sort of the some form of a dangerous hobo. And he kind of is. But there are things about the story that allow me to kind of square that circle and make that work for me. The first is the overall mood of the piece as a whole. It is never coming across like some sort of cautionary tale of, oh, this is what homeless people are like. It never feels like that. The isolation of the of the single setting helps a lot, because unlike, say, Sardines and A Quiet Night In, which were both single location set, but they also happened over a continuously shown short period of time. This happens over weeks, but we still never leave that flat. And it gives it a sense of isolation and heightened reality that helps what would otherwise be problematic elements about a character like Mig to go down a little bit smoother. And for me, at least, to work. And as things go along, it was funny. The other thing is, this was a thought I had while I'm watching it. I sort of started to see Mig as a bit of a metaphor for just toxic gaslighting relationships. Because I've seen people in relationships like that, whether they were romantic relationships they had with friends, relationships they had with coworkers, where somebody just, they drag you down to where they are and then they climb up on top of you to stand where you stood, and they isolate you and they cut you off from your support while playing at being your friend. I mean, those sorts of things are real, and not in a tramp comes and takes over your flat way. That is sort of the heightened, exaggerated analogy, or potentially is, because by the end, what we're actually dealing with is we're dealing with a mental illness story. And much like with the homeless person element, if people find that depiction of mental illness to be exploitive, I can't say definitively you're wrong to feel that way, and I wouldn't say that. I feel like the overall tone is heightened enough, that it's not presenting itself as any sort of base level of reality. And while it is a little bit sensationalized, I do feel it's overall kind of tackling the whole concept with a surprising amount of respect. And I think that's part of the reason that this isn't as jokey an episode. I think they appreciated the weight of what it was they were actually doing in terms of dealing with a man's mental breakdown as his world kind of came apart, and he's hallucinating and he's having delusions, and he doesn't want to go out and he doesn't want to see people, and he quits his job and he stops bathing, he stops shaving, and it's a spiral of depression and isolation exacerbated by Mig. And I'm surprised how well the Gerri twist worked, because on paper that sort of double or almost triple twist, that I should be rolling my eyes by the end of that. Like the whole thing of, Mig isn't real. Just kind of went, oh, okay, so we're beautiful minding this. All right, okay. I wasn't shocked by that. I didn't see it coming, but I wasn't shocked by that revelation. And then when we get Gerri's a hallucination too, I'm like, oh man, this guy's really screwed up And then we get the reveal of, oh no, Mig actually was real. But Gerri convinced Tom that he wasn't. And now something awful has happened. It's a layering of twists that should not work, but somehow does. And I'm not sure I can pinpoint why it works when I know it shouldn't. Like, this just should not work at all. And yet it does somehow. And that's kind of nice. It's kind of almost magical. It's like it is like a magic trick. You're just seeing something that, like, wait, how did that happen? And it's very well acted from all the people involved, from our returning main actors to Gemma Arterton. Cannot remember how it's pronounced right now. As Gerri, and we have Steve, who shows up, who's nice and who's pleasant, and all that works really well. And again, anyone who feels it's being exploitative or reductive in its depiction of mental illness, I won't say you're wrong, but it's detached enough from a sense of reality that it works for me as a narrative. It works for me as a storytelling device. And it doesn't have to work for everybody. But it works for me for the same reason something like Split works for me. It is so far away from selling itself as being real that something like that doesn't really bother me. So I think that'll about wrap it up. Yeah, this was good, and it makes me feel better about continuing with the show, because that was a big dip on A Quiet Night In, but this was good. This was well constructed. I feel like, to compare it to Quiet Night In one more time, this feels really well thought out. A Quiet Night In felt like it had well thought out logistics in terms of, like, the geography of where characters were at any time and making sure they didn't see each other. That part felt really well thought out. But moment to moment, beat to beat, character moments, jokes felt very lazy. This one feels well thought out top to bottom in a way that A Quiet Night In didn't. And I really appreciated that. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Tom and Gerri, Inside number 9. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. You know the stuff that you can do, and you don't need me to tell you. I do have a Patreon. That's kind of the big one, but links for all that stuff is down in the description. And remember, folks, you are the council. I just run the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.